Congressman, welcome. Everybody wants to know, it's the subject of the moment, who won that scooter race between you and Congressman Sam Johnson?
Well, Sam Johnson's a friend. He's a war hero, but boy, he was an Air Force pilot, and he had afterburners on that scooter. He just took off, and I had no shot. So, you know, it was a fun time, but we're going to miss Sam. He's retiring from Congress. But what an American hero he is.
87 years young. You know, obviously it was meant to honor Capitol Hill Police as well. It had a serious intent. You ever look back and when you saw them being recognized of what could have been?
Well, you know, you just look at what happened at Sutherland Springs and just a horrible tragedy that we're all still mourning, and I'm praying for those families. Our baseball practice could have turned out the same way if we didn't have Capitol Police there. You know, David Bailey and Crystal Griner right away were able to engage the shooter and stop him from shooting at us. And it saved my life, and it saved the lives of a lot of other members of Congress. So I have nothing but the ultimate respect for the heroism and bravery of our United States Capitol Police and all law enforcement.
You know, sir, I was thinking of you in light of this latest Rand Paul development that the senator was, you know, beaten up and pretty severely banged up by a neighbor in which 5 ribs were broken. Do you think, now I know you're in leadership in the House, so you have automatic protection, that we need to re-examine protection for our congressmen and women and senators?
Well, I know a lot of people are looking at their own security procedures, as they all should. You know, and it's a shame that we've come to this point where you have some people who think it's acceptable to resort to violence to settle political disagreements. It's unacceptable to do that, and we've got to get back to a more civilized society where we go and debate our ideas vigorously. That's what makes our country great. But again, there's no excuse to resort to violence.
You know, I was mentioning the Senate as well, and of course I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about their plan that's competing with your plan to try to meld the two. And the big differentiator seems to be delaying the corporate tax cut. The Senate is looking at pushing it back to 2019. How do you feel about that?
Well, in our bill, we've been working really hard to make sure that those tax cuts are immediate. I'm not going to criticize the Senate because I'm encouraged that they're actually moving a bill forward. I want them to pass a bill, just like we need to pass a bill. But when we passed a bill in health care out of the House and they fell 1 vote short, it was a huge disappointment for all of us. This time we need to get it done. President Trump is all in on these tax cuts. They're going to create jobs. They're going to bring jobs back to America. We need to get a bill on President Trump's desk. Ideally, by the end of the year, let's work out the differences, but the main focus has to be on cutting taxes for everybody, personal and corporate, so that we can bring jobs back to America and get our economy moving again.
You know, they've got a 7 tax bracket structure. You guys have 4. They bring the top rate down from 39.6% in your measure to about around 38.5%. There are other differences and what have you, but how do you feel about that? I mean, that alone is pretty big, different ground to sort of cover.
Well, again, you know, the Senate's going to have to figure out how to pass a bill that achieves the main goals of cutting taxes and getting the economy moving and bringing jobs back home. We're going to do the same thing in the House. If there are differences, which there will be, we'll work them out. But look, in our bill, we simplify the tax code so much that over 90% of Americans could actually do their taxes on a postcard or an app if you're, you know, a young kid who's got those smartphones like a lot of us do. But the bottom line is we've got to simplify the tax code and cut taxes and create jobs. That's what our bill does in the House. I would imagine the Senate's going to go a little bit different route, but ultimately focus on the same thing. And then the key goal here is to get a bill on President Trump's desk, which he wants on his desk so that he can sign it and get this economy moving again.
The president seemed to hint with some folks while traveling in Asia that when he made that call, you know, to Senate Democrats, that he kind of likes what the Senate's cooking up more than what you guys cooked up. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, when we filed our bill last week and we had a formal rollout, the day we filed the bill, President Trump invited us down to the Oval Office, and he had Chairman Kevin Brady of the Ways and Means Committee and his committee there with our House leadership, and he said, I'm 100% behind this bill. You know, again, he can also be supportive of the Senate's bill because he knows in the end we're going to come together, the House and Senate, on a bill that cuts taxes for families, rebuilds the middle class, brings jobs back to America, America, and he'll sign that bill. The differences will be worked out, but the key objectives for both of us are to lower taxes for people of all income brackets and to bring jobs back to America. Our bill surely does that in the House. I would imagine the Senate's bill would have a similar impact, and then let's work out the differences and get this done.
You know, you talked about simplicity. I remember that event in the White House where you took out an index card and showed how simple it could be. And I'm sure that's a great allure, Congressman, but I talk to a lot of people who say simplicity is one thing, but I want a lower net pay. In other words, my taxes to go down, whether it's on an index card or a $50-page tax form. And a lot of people are crunching numbers, and they're chagrined to find out that with losing some write-offs and deductions in order to pay for this, that it isn't that big. What do you say to that?
Well, what you're going to see is across every income tax bracket, people are going to get a tax cut. We've been running the numbers for some individual members who have had the same question you have. And they say, geez, in my district, are people going to be paying less? And when we run the numbers, in most of those districts, every income bracket sees a tax cut. And so, look, in any kind of change in the tax law.
I know that's the nature of the beast, and I know, but
Right.
Ronald Reagan wanted to make sure that everyone had a tax cut. Everyone across the board. George Bush with his tax cuts. Everyone across the board, even JFK. Are you disappointed, and maybe it's just the math reality, Congressman, that everyone won't hear?
Well, right now, the problem with our current tax code is it is a series of winners and losers.
Right.
10,000 pages of items where if you don't get a special interest loophole, you might have lost out. Let's get rid of those special interest loopholes and lower the tax rates for everybody. And look, I understand if somebody is taking advantage right now of an existing part of the tax code and that goes away, they're not going to be happy that it goes away. But when they look at the overall impact, most people across the board are going to see more money in their pockets. They're going to see more take-home pay. Independent analysis that are coming out on this already, the Tax Foundation says on average, people are going to see over $2,500 more in their pockets. That's a big windfall for families who have not seen their income go up over the last few years, not to mention the benefit of economic growth you get from bringing jobs back to America. You understand what economic growth is. Under the last 8 years of President Obama, we were hovering below 2% every quarter in economic growth. That's incredibly anemic. We can do better. We're already seeing, just with President Trump talking about this, you're seeing growth approach 3%. We could approach over 4% economic growth. That means more money in people's pockets, bigger economic opportunities, and pay raises for the first time for a lot of blue-collar workers who have not been able to participate in the American dream the way they will under our bill.
All right, and so you hope. You know, you mentioned how things are going along in the House very well thus far. It seems to be in the Senate. It's anyone's guess, and it's complicated, I guess, sir, by what's going on at Rand Paul and how long he could be convalescing. And now Roy Moore, the Alabama Senate candidate, who's sidetracked by these allegations in the Washington Post and elsewhere that he had maybe initiated relationships some years back with 4 teenagers. Are you worried, at the very least, it is going to complicate getting this done in the Senate?
Well, you know, the Senate's a different body. They have a different set of rules. One of the things that we've focused on in the House is let's do the House's business and the people's business the way we can, and then send a bill over to the Senate and let them do their job. And I think you're going to find they're going to come together. I just spoke to Rand Paul yesterday because, you know, he prayed for me a lot when I was in the hospital. I'm praying for him, and I spoke to him, and he's getting better. And he wants to get tax cuts passed, too.
Did he tell you how soon he would be comfortable coming back to Washington, when he's able to?
No, but he's very engaged in this debate on tax reform. He actually asked me about a provision of our bill, something that he's interested in over in the Senate. So he's engaged in this. He's fully aware of what's going on, and he wants to be a part of this and help us get these tax cuts passed.
You know, finally, sir, Judge Roy Moore and these allegations, Mitch McConnell, some of your colleagues in the House and the Senate said it's true. He should step down, not run for the Senate. How do you feel about that?
I don't like being presumptuous, but look, these are very serious allegations. Obviously, if they're true, it's unacceptable behavior. And so, you know, let's find out more of the facts, but, you know, it's disturbing what you're hearing, and, you know, and let's see where the facts lead us.
All right. Very good seeing you again, Steve Scalise, the House Majority Whip. Continued improvement in your own health. Remarkable story. Thank you, sir.
Always great to be with you, Neil.
Same
Appreciate
here.
it.
Be well.